Today we're going to build this code editor component in React. As you can see on the screen, I have two code editors here. The first one is this one that you see on the right. This is the code editor for the actual code where we can write the actual code, and you can see on the left here I have another code editor that takes that we can put in file name there, file name, or we can specify terminal. We can put in icon. We have this execute code icon. When we click on this, I want the code to be executed, but this execution we will not be doing in this part of the video. I'm still working on this functionality because there is so much things that needs to be done in order to actually, well, this code cannot be executed, but usually in the documentation site, currently I have just the APIs. I only have the APIs. I do not have the component showcase or the component demo, but all the code editor that you see on the screen here, this is a code editor of Typescript where we just provide, well, this is not really a script, but this can take in, this code editor can take in various forms. So here, okay, so the user can put in the file name. There's this run, execute, stop button. There's this user can also supply the GitHub link to where the source code is hosted. So in this case, this source code is hosted on mozilla.org. That will directly take me to that. And there's also a way to copy the code in the Excel code editor. If I click on this copy to clipboard, you'll see that a success appears saying copy to clipboard, and now this particular code has been copied. So if I want to paste that there, you see that the code can be copied and pasted just by clicking a this copy to clipboard button here. Okay, so that's for that. And so this code editor, again, like with every other components that we are writing, it responds to our theming system. So currently I am in light theme, so the code editor will automatically adjust to that. And if I again switch to dark theme, the code editor again will adjust to that. And this code editor also has syntax highlighting enabled. So in this case, it's a React code, React component, so you'll see that it has a nice syntax highlighting, which we are going to do in this video here. Okay, and also this code editor has different variants. So this is currently rendering a code editor with variant field. We'll also have code editor with variant outlined, and we'll also have code editor with variant transparent here. Okay, so this is going to be somewhat of a long video, but we will see all the code editor variants, all the functionalities at the end of this video. But there are a few things that we need to do in order to build this. This code editor is also content editable, so this is fairly easy. We'll also have to make this code editor content editable. Right now it is not. If I click on that, it is not, but by the end of this video we will have a content editable code editor too. Okay, we can directly edit the this component code right in the window here. Okay, but there are a few things that we'll need to build before we build out this entire code editor. The first thing we'll need is, because we already have all these icons, right? We did this in previous videos where we already have all these icons. If not, go to my GitHub and then clone all those, or copy and paste, whatever you want to do, get that in your project. Okay, here. Okay, but the first thing that I see what we'll need to do is there's this functionality to copy to clipboard. So we'll first start building out this copy to clipboard, or the copy component, and then we will switch to building out this code editor component all in this video. Okay, and after all that, after we write all these components, we'll also write a component testing using Cypress for all the components that we built in this video here. Okay, so let's go back to VS Code, come to packages, come to core, src. Inside this context folder, like we did in the last video, we created a tooltip context. So in the same case, to make this copy work, to make this copy component work, we'll need to write a context, new context called copy context. Okay, so I'm just going to call this copy context, new folder, and inside that new folder I'm going to create a new file called copy context.tsx. And just like with the tooltip context, let me just copy and paste this here, and we'll make a few adjustments here. Create context imported, interface copy. Instead of tooltip here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace all tooltip with copy here, okay? And we'll just do replace all. Let's close that. Is open state is boolean good. We'll also add a new type here called reference, and this is that react ref that I talked about in previous videos that we have been doing in every single thing. So you'll see that use ref hook in action here, okay, in this component. So is open state is set to by default false, and reference, there'll be an object. So let's default export this context, and now for the context I think it's good. So let's go ahead and create this copy component. This copy component will have two components, just like with the tooltip component that we did in the last video. This copy component will have the copy component itself, and it'll also have the copy response component, okay? So again, just like with the tooltip content and tooltip, we are doing the same thing here. Copy component, which is the component that you see here, and inside that copy component we'll do a copy response component. So that copy to clipboard, you see that green there, that's the copy response component that is doing the that work of rendering that content here, okay? So copy context looks good. Let's come to components. Let's create a new folder called copy, and let's create a new file called copy.tsx. So in this one here, let's import everything that we need. So we need React, use ref, forward ref, style from style components with system props from Mod.js YouTube /utils, import button, tooltip content that we did in the last video, typography, we already did this, copy icon, this is already there. Go and clone my repository or put it in your project however you want, okay? But all these components are needed here. So copy context is also imported. So first thing we'll do is define a TypeScript interface, copy props, and this will take children, which is react.react node, and this will also take ref, that is react.ref. I really don't need to use react dot, but since I already imported React, but that's not a big deal. And we'll need to specify the text node. What is the text that we want to copy? This is important here, okay? And this is why we will use React ref here, okay? Which you'll see it in just a bit. But React.ref object, okay, and that's an HTML element, or it could also be null, okay? So this text node is the node that we want to copy, okay? So in this case, when I click on this copy to clipboard, the node, the text node, the DOM node that is going to be copied is this here, okay? Is this text node here, this npm install this line here, okay? So that's the text node that we want to copy, and we can specify that in, we'll specify that in just a bit in when we write that functionality here, okay? So that's for the types. Let's also do same thing for forward ref. Make sure text node does not go to the DOM. Also create this toggle copy wrapper and set the width to fit content, okay? And write const mod copy is equals to, this will render a styled.div, this mod copy component. Let me just do that, and then set the padding right to 4 pixels. You can experiment with this. All the CSS, you definitely want your own values, but we're talking about the behavior and writing reusable components here, okay? So this is not a CSS video here, and this is not a CSS course. So const copy, so that's the copy component we are going to write here, return. So before doing that, let's supply the children text node props. And of course this copy component does not have to be used with the code editor. It can be, this copy component can be placed anywhere. Okay, so if I want to copy this title, I can simply put this this copy button in right over here beside the title, and we can provide a text note saying that this title needs to be copied, and it can be copied too. Okay, it does not always have to be inside the code editor, but that's the normal use case. Let's apply a type for this. So that's mod copy props. So children text node props, and I always keep forgetting ref. This is ref react dot ref HTML element. I'm sure there is other ways to do this instead of writing ref in every single component, but the optimization, we will never get done with optimizing our code and making our code better. Okay, so that's the truth of life. But just like with the tooltip component, I believe we'll do is open. We're using state here, and set is open, so that the state can be changed within this component, the global state, using create context. So youth state, the default is false, and so since we have used reference, we'll set that to use ref HTML element. This is currently null. Okay, so this is where we are using this use ref here, like we had been talking about in the from the beginning of this playlist. Also set this state to copied, set the copied, and set copied. We'll need to set this, and we can use youth state. The default is false here. Okay, we do not want this set, we do not want to set the copied state to true by default. We'll set it to false. Copied, set copied. So let's return the component here, and then we'll write all the functionalities for this. So copy context dot provider value is equals to set the value, and of course we'll need to get this value here. Okay, so just like with the tooltip component, const value is equals to, we are extracting the value of the context here. So we have, I believe, 2 values in copy context. So we have is open, and we also have reference here. Okay, so we need to destructure that here, is open and reference. Let's save that. Let's come down here, and this should be wrapped in a parenthesis because it'll give you an error when we have multiple components. So mod copy, let's close that too, and then any props, like always, that the user wants to supply. Props ref, there shouldn't be a comma there, ref is equals to ref. Make sure you wrap that props inside a braces. Ref is ref, and text node is equals to, that's where why we are defining that reference. So we'll supply, we will assign the text node to be the reference object here. Okay, and also data test is equals to copy. So what we'll do here is, if the copied state is false, so we'll need to do 2 things here. So currently, if I don't, like in a normal scenario, this copy to clipboard is by default false, right? But as soon as I click on that, copy to clipboard is set to true, and then it is automatically set to false maybe after a couple seconds there. The copy to clipboard, that green box is gone. Okay, but we're setting that in, and then so let's do this here too. Okay, so if not copied, if copied is false, if the copied state is false, and if the copy state is false, we will re-enter that toggle copy wrapper we defined above, and in toggle copy wrapper, what we will do is we will need to define an on-click event, and we can set this to handle copy to clipboard. We do not have this function, so let's go ahead and write this function here. So we can write it here, const handle copy to clipboard is equals to so what it is doing here is as soon as I click on this copy to clipboard button, we need to handle this click event. Okay, so handle copy to clipboard, this can be an asynchronous function. I think we talked about this in part 3 where this was needed when we set up the development environment, when I talked about Node.js and Node.js architecture. But text node.current, and so this current comes from when you use ref. So ref object, inside that there is something called a current. That is the current value here. Okay, so this text node.current, that is the current node. Okay, so this current is the value that is inside that object there. Okay, so const text is equals to, we want the text that needs to be copied, so text node.current dot, and we can finally extract the text content of that text node. Okay, using text node.current.text content. Okay, text is either that or empty here. Okay, so let's try a try block here. Await navigator dot clipboard. So this is a JavaScript clipboard API. So await navigator dot clipboard dot write text. So this is provided by JavaScript here. Okay, there's nothing new going on. So write text, and then we will set the set copied state to true. And because you see that whenever I click on this, the copy to clipboard success message pops up, but I do not want that message to be there all the time. I want that message gone maybe after a couple seconds, maybe 5 seconds, as long as you want, but I really do not want that copy to clipboard success message to be there once something is copied, because if the user wants to copy something again, if they make a change here and if they want to copy something again, they are not going to be able to do that. So we'll need to set a timeout to expire or to revert this set copied state back to false. Okay, so that that copy response is hidden. Okay, so we can set timeout here. That's good. Let's do set copied. We can set this to false, and we will set this to false only after maybe 1000 millisecond, that is 1 second, and we'll write a catch block to catch any error that might occur. Set copied to not copied. So that's that. Let's come out of this if, and let's set is open to true. Okay, so if not this, where else set is open state to true here. Okay, so that looks good. There are a couple things. Well, we'll need to export to this, and have we not used children, we'll also need to make use of this children here. Okay, so let's come down here, and then now let's also set a data test for this, because when we write a test, I'm going to call this data test ID because this is not the primary component. I'm going to call it default copy icon. And let's import, or let's use that tooltip component that we did in the last video. I'm going to set the arrow to true. Okay. Element is, what is the element? Element is that icon button here, the save button, that is the element here. Okay, so that's how we are going to use that. We did this in last video, but button variant is equals to icon. So this is an icon button. And inside that button, we'll just use that copy icon. Let's save that. And there is something wrong going on here, so let's close that tooltip, and then tooltip content, display position. Let's specify the display position is equals to, I can call it, I think the default is left, so I'm going to do right. And typography variant is equals to small. We already have this typography component. I'm also going to supply the color of white here, okay, because the tooltip background is kind of like dark or gray, so the white color will look good there. Copy to clipboard. That's the tooltip. And if not copied, then that's what we are going to display. Okay, so this is basically what it is doing. Right now the copied state is false, but if I hover over that, the tooltip appears saying copy to clipboard. Okay, it's as simple as that. And in order to make that functionality work, see, this is the beauty of building a reusable React components here. Okay, so we can directly use this tooltip component without having to worry with the functionality or how that tooltip is implemented. We are simply importing that and using it. Okay, and we never have to look back again unless we have to change the styles or the behavior of the tooltip component itself. Okay, so copied and children. So let's export this. Export default with system props, forward ref, not forward props, forward ref, and that is a copy. So let's save that. So that is for the copy component. We'll need to do this with the, because the copy component, just like with the tooltip component, copy will also have another component within it called copy response here. Okay, so copy response dot, that's a new folder, and inside that folder I'm going to create a new file called copy response.spec.tsx, or not a test file. Let's create the Excel component file first. So copy response.tsx. Let's import everything we need. This is going to be fairly simple here, just like with the tooltip component. And let's define types for the copy response component. So mark copy response props, it's going to take children, ref, and also just like with the tooltip component is open state here. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste that. Copy my copy response, just doing some styles. We have done this enough times. I'm not going to repeat that here. Okay, but now let's finally write a copy response component, just like with the tooltip component that takes in children and props. We are destructuring that is open from the copy context that we wrote in context. Mark copy response setting is open. If it's open, then box padding 8 the children here. Okay, so let's save that, and that's the copy response. I think this would work out pretty well. I think let's go ahead and copy and write test for this first before moving with other components that's needed for code editor. So let's first write a test for this copy component. So create a new file called copy.spec.tsx. let's look at this copy component. There is not really anything special going on here. One thing I am going to miss in this video is to actually test. So if you look at it in this handle copy to clipboard, we will need to write a test for this, okay? And this inside this handle copy to clipboard, this function has dependency itself, which I talked about in my testing video, dummy stuff, fake mock, the integration test and end-to-end test. This handle copy to clipboard has a dependency because this is using this navigator, the clipboard API from the JavaScript clipboard API. So we'll don't really need to test this because we know that navigator.clipboard.write text, we know that it works. It has already been thoroughly tested. We do not need to test it again here. Okay, here again. Okay, so let's go and write a test for this. So let's import everything that's needed. React styled theme provider from mozilla/youtube/utils, and import copy from copy, import layout from layout here. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste these test cases. Again, very simple cases, okay? Very simple test cases, nothing special going on here. We are just importing the copy component and writing tests that we have always been doing, okay? Nothing complex at all. So let's go to Cypress here and go to copy. So now you'll see that the copy is working. And I think in the last video, the tooltip was kind of spaced out or not aligned properly, but now you see that as soon as I hover over that, copy to clipboard is there. If I click on that, it is not going to give us that copy response because we have not specified the text node. Okay, so that's the copy component. All the test cases pass, everything looks good there. Let's also create a test file for this copy response. So copy response .spec.tsx, and again this is also very simple. All I'm going to do is copy and paste the tests that I already have. Okay, and this will all be in GitHub. So if you are worried about not having this code, or go to either GitHub or pause the video and then write out this all these tests here. Okay, so mozilla/youtube. That looks good. Let's also open up this copy response component and then see if everything is working fine. So that one is copy response. Everything looks good because the response initially is, you know what, let's actually run the first test case only so that we can actually see if there's something popping up. There's nothing popping up because we are only rendering this copy response, and also because this we are not the copied state is not being set here because we are testing for copy response. That's why you do not see anything here. But if you go to copy, you'll see that there's this button, there's this element that can actually be clickable, and then it'll copy the text node. Okay, so that's the copied functionality. So let's do, so I think that should be all for the copy. We will use this in the final code editor that we're going to build here soon. So let me close some of this. So that's for the copy and copy response. The next thing we will do is, if we look at this code editor and do inspect page, let's go to the top there. Not carousel, pre mod box before. So you see that this main code editor component, this is the code editor, and this is the code. I believe that's supposed to be code editor header, but you see that this entire code editor is wrapped with this pre-tag. So let's go and do that, okay? Because we'll need to wrap this with HTML pre-tag and then render the actual code element, okay? So let's build this pre-tag, and this pre-tag is also responsible for providing all these variants that is within this code editor, okay? So there is this variant field, variant outline. This current one is variant field. But we'll need to do that in the pre component. Okay, so I'm going to create this new folder here called pre, and I think this would be better to organize this a little differently instead, because people are not going to, well, they might, so I think that that's still good. But as our use case change, or as something changes, we can always change these, okay? Because all these components that we are building, they are isolated standalone components that works out great even without the help of any other components, okay? So pre.tsx. So this pre component will provide an outline for the code editor. So let's import everything that we need. Let's also define types for the pre component. We have children, we have ref as always, and this variant field outline transparent, that is with all the other components. Those are the three variants. You're free to add anything new that you want. Notched is boolean. Notched is this basically this cut corners that you see on the button 2 on the link on the code editor. That's the notched, which I like it, so I'm going to keep that style there. So let's do forward props. You should be really familiar with all these here by now. So I'm going to copy and paste this. So this mod pre, we're using styled to render a pre HTML element here, okay, or the pre tag, okay, and then we're just adding some styles. So color all these ones. You can copy and paste this. We have 3 variants for the pre component or for the code editor. So props.variant is filled, then apply this background color from the theme, apply some margin. If the variant is outlined, apply this background color from the props.theme.mode, that is the main background color. So that and then for transparent, props.theme.mode again, okay. These two I believe could be in the same thing, but since these are different variants, I think it's better to do that. So that one, and I also have notched effect. I don't know if you do, but I do. So I'm going to add in some extra lines of code here that will take care of that notched props too, okay. So that's for the, let's close that. That it looks good. So const pre is equals to, let's do that, and then I got confused there. I froze there for a little bit, but let's destructure this. That'll do children and variant notched and props dot spread out the props, and then mod pre props, and then don't forget the ref. So ref react dot ref HTML element. That looks good. So let's return this mod pre that we defined above, and let's wrap this inside a box, and we're just going to render the children here, okay. Mod pre, let's not forget all the props that the user wants to supply. Props ref is equals to ref. I keep doing that. There shouldn't be that braces there, and there shouldn't also be a comma there. Let's supply variant is equals to, if the user supplies the variant, then we're going to use that user supplied variant of field outline or transparent, else the default variant is filled, okay. And notched, same thing with notched. If the user specifies that the notched should be true, 3 equals to true, then true, else the default is false, okay, because that notched Style is kind of like my style, so it might not be yours, but data test is equals to pre. And I forgot to mention that this notched is using clip path right now, and in some browsers clip path doesn't work out well. So, but it's always better to test this, okay? And I've seen that in a larger screen. And this notched property sometimes has glitches or bugs, which I'm still working on to fix, but it still works out pretty good, okay? So export default with system props forward ref, and let's wrap our pre component with this. So that's all for the pre component. And let me check if I missed anything here. I think that's about it for the pre component. Let's write a test for this, okay? This is going to be again fairly simple. All we are testing is testing some styles here, okay? Nothing as complex. Pre.spec.tsx. You know what, before we write tests for this, let's go ahead and work with the actual code editor component itself, okay? Because this code editor will use this pre component, so when we write the test for the pre component, we will need the code editor component to see if it is working, okay? So let's create a new folder here called code editor. So this is the actual our code editor component, code editor, and let's create a new file called code editor.tsx. So in this, I don't know if I mentioned this, but this code editor, all this syntax highlighting is not done from scratch. I do want to eventually do this by myself without using any other external libraries, but this can be a project on its own. This syntax highlighting, there is just so much things to do that needs to be taken care of in order to actually highlight the code, especially when you want to highlight different code. Let's say that you want to highlight the script, you want to highlight the component code, you want to highlight JavaScript, maybe Python. Those are going to be different, okay? So I think it's better to use a library, and I'm going to use something called a highlight.js. So if you go to highlight.js, this is the library that I'm going to use, and it is an open source project, okay? Really fantastic library. There are some limitations of this, but I think for my use case, I am satisfied with how it works. So let's go ahead and import this, okay? And I think we already installed this highlight.js, so let's go to package.json and make sure that highlight.js is installed indeed. Okay, highlight.js was installed. I remember we did this in the beginning to avoid any conflicts in the future, okay? That's why I installed it at that time. Let's import React, use ref, use state, use effect from React, style from, style components, SL.js, that's the highlight.js, from highlight.js/lib/core. We'll also need to import JavaScript from highlight.js, lib language is JavaScript because we are using JavaScript. React itself is built on top of JavaScript. We're also going to highlight HTML, so import that. And highlight.js has all these themes, so the one that I'm importing is atom1dark.css. There are many different themes. I think if you go to just demo here, then you'll see that there are many different themes that you can choose from in highlight.js. So if you just write in some code there, that's not really that, but let me just copy this and then see what it does here. So see, you can use any theme that you want, and it is just going to automatically do it for you here, okay? So let's go back to code here. I'm going to use this atom1dark.css theme. That it's basically just a plain CSS file that provides theming. Let's import other components here for our code editor. So I'm going to import with system props from mods.js-youtube and mods.js-youtube. It would be so nice if I could write at least separate all this code out with at least some comments. But let's define an interface. I'm just going to do this here. I'm not going to write all this again. So interface mod code props extends from this. So this code editor component takes in children, it takes in class name. So this class name, remember, it is for the highlight.js, for syntax highlighting. Okay, we're also using content editable, and that it will take boolean, either true or false. Remember that every single thing in HTML can be editable. So let's say that if I want to edit this text here, I can set this h1 tag content editable to true, and then I can start editing that. Okay, so that's how simple it is. So if let's say that in this code editor, if I go to code and edit as HTML, if I set content editable, if I set that to true, I should be able to edit this content here. Okay, or maybe not a string. Let me, oh, it's already content editable to, well, can I set the boolean value like that? This is, so let's quickly, oh, you know what, yeah, because it is overriding that. Okay, so that wasn't supposed to be that. Content editable was set to false in the end, so let's set this to true, and then see that it should be editable, but content editable, am I doing that right? So let's just quickly Google this content editable here in MDN. Content editable, but this is what it does. Okay, see, so content editable is set to true. I can basically edit anything that I want on the web page here. Okay, but this should work too. So we will, I don't know why it's not doing that right now, but we will make this work by the end of this video here. Okay, because it should be editable. Well, let's come back to code. Set the content editable to boolean. Type is either script or code, and this is for, in order to, because if the code editor, if the code gets too long, like you see in, let's say that if I go to customization, like this lighttheme.js, this code editor is somewhat long here, so that's why I want to be able to scroll the code editor instead of displaying all the code in a single web page. So that's the type of code, and the type of script, like you have seen, all this code editor are a type of script. Okay, those are for scripts, and the other one is for code. It'll also, we can also supply a file name that might be needed if you are focusing some code. Header content, that is for where all these icons and this icon, this file name is, or the icon is, that's the header content. Disable exec, so this can also be, because in the code editor, in the final version of this code editor that I'm building, I want the users using this component to be able to supply whether the code is executable or not. Okay, so in this case here, you can see that there's this disabled icon, so this disable exec is currently set to true. Okay, so that's why it is disabling that execution. And for variant and notched, those are the styles. So let's move on here. Let's always do forward ref or forward props, and then not pass in all these ones. These are not valid HTML attributes. So whatever all the props we define over here on the top, we'll need to not forward it to the DOM here. Okay, because they'll throw a React error saying that something is not a valid HTML attributes. Let's write a simple styles for this. So here mod code, we are using the code HTML element using style components, and we are just, I am just styling that code editor. Okay, we're setting the background props content editable. If the something is content editable, outline is done. If it is code, we are setting that style. So I'm going to save that. Okay, copy all this down and then paste it in your code. We also have code header, so I could have called this code editor header and mod code editor, but that's okay. So it's just a simple naming convention there. So now let's finally define the code editor components. So these are all the props. We are finally using that code ref, okay, in order to copy that's why the text node in the copy component, that's where we'll be using this. Okay, so const code running, set code running is by default false. Okay, so this is to whenever we click on this execute code, this green play icon is going to be turned into a red square icon, indicating that the code is running. Okay, but this functionality I have not completed it yet, and it is going to take some time for me to do that. So as soon as I have that done, I'll make a new video on this code editor component, update to this code editor component, where I will include that one too. Okay, so that there, let's return. And while handle code run is basically to manage this set code running state, and we are using use effect, and we are supplying a empty dependency array, which means that it should run only on the first reender. If coderef.current and dataset.highlighted, we are using highlight.js to highlight all the code there. Okay, so return, what we're going to do is I'm going to copy and paste this here because this is a little longer. I do not want to sit here and write this. So we are returning that pre-component that we wrote just earlier, and then variant, we are supplying the user variant. Notched, we are waiting for the user to supply the notch value. We are using that mod code header. Box padding left is 8. The file name, the user can supply that. Okay, there's another box. If the code is running, then this is where we will display this square icon. This is kind of reddish color for the icon, and there's also this tooltip we're using. Okay, so these are just normal. Here we are for the tooltip element, there is the button disable exec false, else true. The default disable exec is true. We are rendering header content, and copy, this copy functionality, this one here, this button. So we are using the copy component, and we are supplying the text node, because copy component takes the text node, go and watch the copy props, okay, of the props of the copy components, and then we are displaying a success icon saying copied to clipboard. And mod code class name is class name, type is if the user supplies the type, then use that type, else the default type is code. Data test is code editor. Ref is equals to code ref. Suppress content editable warning is set to true, because with React, whenever you set content editable to true, then you're going to get content editable warning. So in order to suppress that warning, we can use this suppress content editable warning and set that to true. Content editable is if the user supplies the content editable to be true, then it is true, but by default content editable is false here. Okay, and then we are rendering children. And so now let's finally export this. That braces needs to be closed. Let's export this component. Export default with system props code editor. And also in this one, we do not have to pass in that forward ref, because we are already using ref here in order to get that text node, so we do not pass forward ref here. Okay, so let's save this. I don't know what happened to my code editor, but all of a sudden this screen is stretching out. I don't know what I did, or if I press something on this recorder here. But let's go ahead and write a test for this code editor component, and then we'll also have to write a test for this pre-component. Okay, so let's create a new file here called code editor.spec.tsx. I am going to import everything that is needed. And how this code, hold on here, let me correct that first. So how this code editor will work is, so inside this code editor, what did I do to my screen? It's really stretched out, but so inside, to use this code editor to actually supply this content here, so node-v, this is the code editor content. So how we can use this is in code editor spec const code editor content, and we'll just supply the content for the actual code, okay, for the code editor. So what we can do is we can just write a simple React code, import React from React, and import, let's import our typography component from at mod.js/core, and let's finally define our app const app is equals to return typography variant is equals to this can be any variant, so let's just call it body1, and I'm just call it a code or rendering a code editor in our code editor component. That looks good. Let's also make this more clear here so that it's not just some random text. Export default app, and in order to fix this spacing, I'm going to put that there, okay? Because let's return. That looks good. Let's add that another line break there. So that's the actual code editor content. Okay, so let's just render this code editor component. Describe code editor. Let's close some of these blocks here. I think that looks good. So let's go to Cypress and see what it does here. Okay, so we have a simple test case should render default code editor component. So let's go back here, and then what is that here? Code editor. So there's that code editor, import React. That looks good. As I hover over that, that is not what I was expecting it to be, and that is also not what I was expecting. So that success icon is way too huge. So let's so this is the default code editor. Let's render some other code editor too, because I know this works out well, the code we have written. I don't know if that's the screen that's doing it, but I really want to wrap this up here. So let's write another test case, and then I'm going to run only this to see. That is not what I was expecting. There's that another outline, but well, I guess that the other error is fixed, but this works out pretty well, like you see in here. That's the exact code that I have. So that's for props. So let's also let's write all the other tests that we have been doing for the higher order component and also for the props. Okay, so we already did that for the props. That looks good. And let's do this for the with system props. Okay, so let's get rid of this only here and then see what happens here. That looks good. There is still this outline here, so I think I missed something. Let's try another test case. So all we have done is tested for styles. So those are all testing for styles. And then let's also test the interactions, because we should toggle stop and run code icon. So this is also fairly simple, but let's run only this code here. So data test run code icon dot click. Once did we write a data test for this? Because I copied this. So yeah, we already have it here, or I already have it there. But as soon as I click on that run code, this one, execute code, the button should be red button. Well, now it is working, so I don't know what's going on here. Okay, but so as soon as I click on the run code, stop code icon should exist. Stop code icon dot click, then run code icons should exist. Okay, so as soon as I click on that, stop code icon should exist, run code icon should not exist, and if I click on the stop execution button, stop execution button should not exist, and execute code button should actually indeed exist. Okay, so I think that is fixing the previous issues that we're having. So what is find out the difference between what this is and then because this will work out great. Okay, there is no way that, because this has been immensely intensively tested by me. So it should work out, but if it doesn't, let me know. Okay, if you still see that glitch. So let's also write another test. No, I think that should be it for this one. There are still few test cases that is missing on this. Like I want to see if, because when I click on this copy to clipboard, it is using that JavaScript copy or the clipboard API, and in order to access that API, there's this course, not really course, but the browser gives you a warnings or a permission issue saying that you cannot access the clipboard object through code or something like that. So I will still make another video of this improved code editor. I do want to make more improvements on this. So for example, I want this button to be a little smaller. I want it to be a little smaller, but besides that, I think this code editor looks out really good. Let's also test one thing for the content editable, because that was not working before. So let's run only one test case here and then check for the content editable. Okay, let's run this end code or the end test case. So toggle stop and run icon code. So that is doing it, but content editable, let's set that to true, because content editable is equals to, let's set it to true, and then see if we can actually edit this code here. Okay, so yes, after setting the content editable to true, I can write anything that I want there, and it is now content editable. Okay, so that is also working. And so let's remove that for now. Disable exec, so let's set that to true and then see if it is working true. And this is why I'm saying that there are more test cases that could be written for this, because when the disable exec is set to true, we can test if the execution button is actually disabled. Okay, but in this case it is not. Yeah, this cannot find because the button is disabled. But let's switch back to false. Go and write other test cases. Okay, for this one there are other test cases that you write, so go and write that. But I think once you have this much idea about writing tests, you should be able to write other text. So before I wrap this up, I'm going to finish this test for this pre component also. Okay, so this is really simple, nothing much going on here. So I'm going to copy this spec file that I already have, and I'm going to paste it over here. Okay, so import code editor, that was my it is not finding this, cannot find module code editor is import code editor, that's code editor, and then code editor. Not code editor, this, why can it not find it? So pre dot then it comes to the components folder, and it should be over there, code editor. So let's save this. I think it's a TypeScript. Is it TypeScript issue? Yeah, it is TypeScript issue. So let's code, this is not code, this is code editor. So I'm going to copy this and then make everything code editor because that's the name of the component. And there are 52 of this. So I do not want to sit here and edit all those 52, but this so this test case is really simple. So forget about the warning, okay? Because I do not want to sit here and because in my original file, I don't know why I did only code, but it should have been called a code editor. But this should work out, okay? So all we are doing is writing a very simple test case to render the pre-component. Same with this one, okay? We're checking for CSS, nothing special going on here, okay? So everything is, I have already explained all this, so it should be fairly easy. Same with this before element. I did this, I talked about this in the past video. We'll need to check for the before element if you are using that notched style, okay? But you know what, I do not want to leave it like this, so let me, can it just be called code? It cannot be that, but let's run Cypress, or because there's not a component called code, there's a code editor component. Let's go to Cypress and see, because that's a TypeScript error, so I think everything might still work, but let's check for this pre. So that is working. So that's the pre-component, and that is pre-component, and inside that pre we are rendering that code editor component, okay? So I'm going to fix this file and I'm going to push it to GitHub, and then you can copy and paste it, but for now I think this should be pretty good. Let's go to code editor, and then let's remove that only there, because I do not want that only keyword, because that is not going to run our test in code editor spec. So let's remove that only, and then that is all the that's the code editor, okay? Let's also use dark theme in the last one, so that dark theme, save that. So that is working out pretty good. That's the code editor. I really wanted to wrap this up because I don't know what happened to my screen. All of a sudden it stretched horizontally, so I'm going to fix this before we jump into the next video. But this is the code editor component, reusable code editor component that can be used. I'm still going to make a lot of improvements on this code editor, and as soon as I do that, I'm going to make a new video including all those improvements that I am making to this code editor, okay? But for now, I think for my use case, this definitely is a lot more than I had initially anticipated. But we will keep improving this. Every single components we'll write, it will never be done. We'll keep improving this, and I'll make new videos as I get time, or as I'm working on these components, okay? So that is it for this one. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.